Hey, welcome back. The next step in our writing journey is setting. Setting you might think of as where the characters are placed. You know, there's some trees in the background, a mountain, they're in a city, something like that. But it could be a lot more than that. Setting, especially if you're writing in an imaginary world like a fantasy or a sci-fi thing, it can really add a sense of wonder, exploration. You can really use your imagination to make up really interesting things, and you can also use it to offer a different way to look at ideas. You know, a fresh look at something if it's set in a different environment. Yeah, so like I mentioned, setting is more than just the mountains and the trees. It can be the religion, the government, the economics, the gender roles of this place, even something intangible like the mood. And the best way to use setting is as a tool to make your story or character and your plot more interesting. Writing paragraphs about setting is not going to be as interesting to a reader as a paragraph about a character or the plot. But if you can combine the two, if you use your setting to develop or show off your character, a great way to use setting. A great tip I've heard is often to focus on the character, and as a side effect, let the reader know about your world. For example, let's pretend we're writing like an old style Western, right? Okay, so instead of saying something like there was a rundown saloon in a desert town, you can focus on the character interacting with this setting to make it a little more interesting. So you could have the cowboy enter the saloon, cough from the dust. He could order a drink and get a dirty glass, and the smelly patrons are trying to pick a fight with him, that kind of thing. It gives the image of a sketchy desert saloon, but it adds some chance for some character development, how he would react to this kind of stuff, and it's just a little more interesting to read. If you're trying to explain like a big political picture in a story, it can be tough. You might end up with pages of wordy paragraphs of dull prose full of facts and dry data, you know. What you want to do is avoid an encyclopedia entry like this. So one way you can do that is, again, to focus on the character and have some concrete scenes where the particular political problem is affecting the character in some way. And by showing the problem through the character's eyes, it just makes it more interesting, one, and two, it makes it easier for the reader to kind of understand what's going on, and it's just way more enjoyable to read, right? And you want, in the end, you kind of want your reader to say, this book was great, lots of action, the characters were interesting, oh, and that Hogwarts place was really cool too. So what makes setting very interesting is when you show how it affects your characters. Another great example is the book Dune by Frank Herbert. So this takes place on a desert planet, and instead of Herbert just saying, "Oh, it was hot and dusty, and you know there was big sand hills and stuff," he showed a whole population of people who live a vastly different life than us because of all the lack of water. So they wear clothes that hold in their perspiration and even their breath, and they have this like weird rituals, like when someone dies, they steam off the moisture from their body and they save it. I know it's pretty gross, but because to these people and their environment, letting water evaporate is just like unthinkable. So it made it kind of like interesting, and kind of a deep think there about how the different settings and stuff can affect people. James Michener, he writes a lot of books too that focus on setting. He writes books like Alaska, Hawaii, Texas, Siberia. They're just named places, and it's almost like a writing exercise for setting his books. Most of the entire point of the books is to tell a tale about a specific place. He writes almost like the setting is a character, and how it grows and shapes over time. How he does this, though, is instead of just talking about the mountains and the trees, he shows a variety of characters and how they interact with the environment. I remember reading Alaska, for example, and instead of describing just like the amazing coastal mountains that were steep and dangerous and stuff, he told a story about the gold mining rush when these gold miners would have to climb these steep mountains, all in one big line, and to get to the gold or whatever that was up top or on the other side. And he described the lines of people all taking this grueling trip and how each step was treacherous, and there'd be rock slides, and if someone slipped and fell and they fell off the line, no one was going to help them because they were going to get pulled off too. And it took 5 hours of nonstop shuffling, and then when they got to the top, the miners would leave their pile of things and they'd have to repeat the process to bring up all their supplies. And if anyone was caught stealing, they would be shot on sight. And that's just like how rough and rugged this mountain was. So yeah, if you really want to get into setting and stuff, I'd suggest reading some Mishner books. So you can see setting's not just about describing a sunset. It's about how it interacts with the characters. And how can you get better at writing setting stuff? How do you know what to write about? What to include? What you're missing? You can talk to other people. Ask somebody else to describe a country or your city or your school or something like that, and listen to what they point out. You can see what other people think is important to mention. You'll see that even though you and this other person might describe the settings different, you'll have different perspectives, right? And your challenge as a writer is to decide what to include, what to focus on, what to leave out. And this is kind of the fun of writing. This is what makes writing great. You get to share your vision of the world, and readers get to experience it.